right, we're live. We're gonna wait a few minutes to see who all jumps on here first. Let's see. If you guys can hear me and the picture looks all right, there's no issues. Drop a line down in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. I want to make sure it's working right and everything. There's no issues. We're gonna give it a few minutes. It looks like we got like seven people on right now, so gonna wait a few minutes and see who all jumps on, and we'll get started. We got a bunch of people jumping on. Mr. Wilcox, what's happening, guys? Looks like we're up to about 9. Sweet, good. I'm not using my headphones, so it feels weird not to have my headphones and stuff on. But since it's just going to be me, I shouldn't have too much feedback then. So just try to get this cool. What's happening, Sean from Pittsburgh? Let me just see. Okay. All right. So I guess we can go ahead and get started. Didn't bring anybody on this one. I was thinking about it, but I just kind of figured, we can just talk about some stuff. People in the comments can throw out, questions or comments that they also have about a topic that I don't think, a topic that I don't think is talked about enough with the retics. I know, and I mean, being an admin for Retic Nation too, we don't allow bite picks and stuff like that, which, for good reason. Obviously, a lot of people think it's because we don't want to show the dangerous side of retics, but it's because I don't want to get those posts banned or reported and get the page banned. Obviously, I think everybody should be well aware of the dangers and the possible issues that can arise from keeping retics. I mean, they are probably the largest species, of snake we keep. Obviously the debate with anacondas and stuff, but I think on average, they're by far the biggest snake that we keep as far as mainlands and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the first, we can touch on that is just a lot of this is going to pertain mainly to mainlands. It's an apex, mainland retics are apex predators, right? They get big, they're strong, they have insane feeding responses. Shit can happen. People can and have died from retics in captivity. I don't know the exact stats. I probably should have looked them up. But, I mean, retics, berms, I don't know if there's been any anacondas in captivity that have killed anybody. But retics are definitely up there. And the thing is kind of why I wanted to talk about this, too, is I see people buying these snakes and treating them like they're toys. They boop them on the snoot. They're walking around with them around their necks. They're letting their young children pet them on the face. It's just crazy. It is absolutely crazy that people allow that to happen and think that that's okay. These aren't, for the most part, they're very mellow animals, but it literally takes a split second for something to happen. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a giant retic too that can kill you. There's been instances, 7-8 foot retics getting around people's necks, cutting off the blood supply and killing them. I mean, it happened not that long ago. So they're very dangerous, can be very potentially dangerous animals. I don't know what the best way to go about that is. as far as social media wise to kind of teach that to people. Like I said, everyone's afraid of getting their pages shut down because you post bite pics or you post, the negative sides of keeping retics. But I wish I had the answer. I don't know how to share that without the risk of losing, losing my page or a group page or anything like that. But I think that's just the biggest thing is the people that aren't respecting these animals as apex predators. It'd be the same as like owning, in my opinion, and people may think I'm wrong, but it's the same as owning like a big cat or maybe a bear or something like that. Just because it's a snake and we don't look at them as like super intelligent, and honestly, let's be honest, snakes are kind of dumb compared to like those larger mammals. They can hurt you just as bad. It doesn't even have to be killing you. I mean, bites. Some of the bites, I have or people that know a buddy of mine. I don't know if I'm not going to say his name, but people who know who he is. He's somewhat local. He got a gnarly bite in his hand. Well, I know two people that got pretty bad bites on their hand. Paul, I think, was speaking about it. Paul Lucas was on a podcast. I don't know if that was this week or last week or whatever, but I mean, he had a gnarly bite, really bad bite on his hand too. I don't remember how big. I don't know if he's in the chat or not, but I don't remember how big that retic is. But I mean, I remember seeing photos of that bite. It was gruesome. It was rough, and it by comparison wasn't that bad compared to some that I've seen. The other friend that I know that got a really, really bad bite in the hand, he had to have multiple surgeries to fix his hand. And again, it wasn't, I don't even think that snake was bigger than 12 or 13 feet. Grabbed him in the hand, ripped his hand all to shreds. It was terrible. Multiple surgeries. I remember seeing him at a Tinley and his hand was all wrapped up. I don't even think he had feelings still in his hand. It was horrible. I've got some. John says he's got some ideas. Hopefully, we need to do something. I wish there was, like I said, a way that we could show the pictures. I'm in the process of working on a website. My personal JK Reptiles website. I've been working on it for a while, but the last couple months I've been really putting some time into it. I've never built a website, so this is all brand new to me. So it's a lot of trial and error. And I've toyed with the idea of possibly putting pictures, some pictures on there of bites and stuff like that, just so people can see. This way we don't have to post it. We could just post a link to the page with all like the I don't know, the photo gallery or whatever I want to do, or if I go that route, just so people can see it. Sean says the complete reticulated python book does have some pics in there. Some of those are pretty bad. I kind of lost my train of thought where I was going with that. But yeah, it's just, like I said, it's crazy to see these people. It's not everybody, but these people that are treating these snakes just like toys. It's crazy to me. And I get it, right? The little baby retics, they're cute. You want to tap them on the snout or whatever. I get it. But once that snake gets a little bit of size, it is potentially dangerous. It really is. I mean, breeding males, 6, 7, 8 foot breeder male or a male in breeding mode, when they hit you with one of those combat bites, man, they're terrible. They do like that bite and they like thrash or roll, and man, they will destroy you. Another guy I know got bit in the foot really bad from a bite from a male. I think it was a small male got him too. Fucked his foot all up really bad. So there's a lot of potential for damage with these animals, And I'm not sitting here trying to say that they're terrible snakes. Nobody should keep them. Any of that. They're my favorite species in the world. I've kept them, 20 plus years. Knock on wood, I've never had a terrible bite. I've had one bite that needed a couple stitches, and it was completely my fault. It wasn't even that many. I think it was like 3 stitches in my leg. Nothing crazy, my fault. But I also don't look at them as like puppy dogs, or where I'm going to snuggle up next to them and put their face in my face, or, I really don't even put them around my neck at all. If I need to move something big, it never goes on my shoulders. and I'm not a small guy, but I would never even put myself in that position. Now, if I'm with a bunch of people and I know there's people that are familiar with the animal, then it's a different story, putting it up on my shoulder, around my neck or something like that. Because I know there's people there that could potentially help me if something happened. But I would never put a big snake like that around my neck when I'm alone, especially. So I think that's... I'm sorry, I'm trying to read these comments too while talking. Yeah, Robert Fuentes says, sorry, I forgot I can put these on the screen. Saw one gnarly one that turned a guy's farm into Swiss cheese. Yeah, there's some bad ones out there. So, I mean, you can scour the internet. You'll find them. Just like I said, mainly I want to do this just because I see it all the time with people handling these snakes and treating them like that. And, certain people want to bitch and complain that, we don't want to show that side of keeping retics, which couldn't be further from the truth. Anybody that's talked to me in public, and asked me, what's the dangers, I would straight up tell you, like, yeah, they're not puppy dogs. They're tolerable, they're tractable to a point, but I would never trust one, just because I've seen what happens. Sorry. Yeah, and I mean, like, another thing too to consider, right, is I hear it all the time from people too, that buy retics and some other large constrictors, but mainly with the retics, is that they're super aggressive and stuff like that. I think a lot of them fail to realize that their feeding responses are insane. 9 times out of 10, when I'm talking to somebody and they reach out to me about, I bought this retic, he's really mean, I can't even get him out of his enclosure, XYZ. It's the food drive. The snakes are probably underfed because they're crazy feeding. They have a crazy feeding response. So people don't want to take them out to clean them, which in turn they're not feeding them, because then if they feed them, they're going to shit and piss, and you got to pull them out to clean them. So now these snakes are hungry. It's just a revolving cycle. There's only been really a handful of retics that I've personally encountered that are I would say, very aggressive. I've had some wild caught stuff. I didn't do a ton of wild caught stuff when I got into it, but I did have some, and they weren't terrible like some I've heard of, but they weren't also, 7, 8 generations captive bred. But for the most part, I think a lot of the aggressiveness that people think of is just the feeding response from the animals. That's where you got to have your tools, right? Your hooks, tubs, stuff like that. If it is an aggressive snake, that way you can move it out of that enclosure, put it right into a tub, clean the cage, so on and so forth. Invest in some good gloves. Say sweaters. Try to wear a sweater with the big gloves. That's always very helpful. That way, if the snake grabs you, it's hitting your shirt. A thick sweater so it can't bite through. Just little stuff like that really helps. At least that way you can move the animal around, interact with the animal, safely without the risk of being bit or torn up. Because again, I think once those animals hit that 7-8 foot mark, man, that's where you really got to be careful, especially with the males, and especially if you have multiple animals or males around females, and they get that sense of the females around. Sometimes they start to get a little excited around the girls, and that's when you can get nailed and get a breeding bite, and that sucks. Let's see. John says both his boys have been great. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Even that's how with a lot of my big stuff too. Like, I don't force them out. There's ways. I hook them, kind of just let them crawl out. They'll crawl into their cleaning tub, or I pull out a snake in the stack, and then I'll move that animal into the stack or into the cage underneath or above or whatever. Just kind of move them around as needed. You're not pulling that snake out, having the full weight, length out of the cage, up on your shoulder, trying to maneuver the animal around your room. It's too much. It's just too hard. Sorry. Jeremy, not John. My bad. But yeah, that's what I usually do. Sean says, I doubt any snake appreciates being booped on their face. Well, look around on a lot of the forums and you might be surprised, because it's, a lot of people like booping their snoots and treating them like toys, and it's fucking crazy. It's I don't know, it blows my mind. Even going to the shows and you see these people walking around with these. It's not even just retics. I mean, I see it with a lot of bigger species, monitors, anacondas, bigger snakes, bigger, pythons and stuff, especially. Just like they're toys or fashion accessories, and they're not like giant apex predators that could fuck your whole world up, or somebody else, walking by. That's one thing I've never. If you guys go to a show, you've noticed I very rarely I might have a snake out in front of my booth, behind my booth, right by my booth, but unless I'm bringing a snake to somebody for some reason, I'm not just walking around a show with a retic around my neck, or something like that. It literally takes, 2 seconds for that snake to freak out and as you're walking, grab somebody, or God forbid, grab a child, hit a child in the head or something. Be terrible. Be absolutely terrible. Sorry, I'm getting messages all over the place. That is true. We have only met once. Why are my messages are all like out of order? That's weird. Another thing as far as danger goes, is I think is caging, right? I think a lot of people, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but I've seen some real shit caging for these animals. And you don't know what you're doing. Throw it in an aquarium with a screen top with no lock or no locking mechanism. People are throwing bricks on there and shit. These snakes are strong. Like a bigger snake, man, would be able to push out no problem. Now you got a big retic loose in, or not even a big, intermediate sized retic loose in your house or apartment or wherever you're at. And again, what if it's mean? What if it hasn't been fed properly? Now it's a medium sized retic that's hungry. It gets out, or it eats your dog, or it eats your roommate's cat, or it gets out of your apartment and hurts somebody. I mean, there's just so much that could happen. They're super strong. They're super smart. I don't know, just blows my mind. To me, it's a lot of common sense, and to a lot of the guys that have been keeping these snakes for any number of years, I think it's a lot of common sense. So it's hard to really talk about all of the craziness we've seen over the years. So how do I handle my males when they're in breeding mode? So typically my males, when they're in breeding mode, I'm typically trying to breed them, right? So usually they're cooled down anyways. When they're cooled down, they're not as on point. I would say they're a little more slow and sluggish. Not a lot, but enough, right? And then I use my hook. I use a hook. I don't have the traditional snake hook that has the U. I think they call it a puller bar or something like that. So it's literally just an L, right, on a long handle. So I'll just take the hook and I'll scoop it, hook the snake, kind of grab them by the tail it, right? I'll tail that animal out and I'll move it into the tub, or I'll move it into another enclosure or whatever I need to do, just to avoid that head. And most of my males are not huge. Most of my males are in like that 8 to 10 range. Maybe there might be a 11-footer here or there, but for the most part, my males are not giant. So they're a little bit easier to maneuver. I did have a really big platinum tiger male many, many, many years ago. He was every bit of, I think he was 15, 16 foot long, something like that. He was big. He was a big male. Luckily, he was a sweetheart. He never went crazy during breeding mode, and they all don't. I'm not sitting here saying every male is going to go nuts. Most of my males are actually very decent for the most part. There's a few that I'm a little more on edge around. I would say probably a good 75, 80% of my males are mellow. Mellow enough, but I still don't trust them. There's a couple that are, like I said, a handful that I wouldn't I wouldn't try to move without a hook. But that's how I move those males that are that don't want to be messed with. What any other? Does anybody have any questions that they're curious about as far as, I guess, what do I do with my not so friendly animals, or any other questions on dangers, stuff like that? See if I can answer anybody's questions while I'm on. There's a lot of people on here. I'm surprised. 17, 18 people. Well, I guess until we get any other questions. Another thing I was looking into, and I guess I personally have never really thought about it, is especially if, let's say, you're renting an apartment or condo or whatever, and something happens, your animal gets out, hurt somebody, whatever, your renter's insurance is probably not going to cover that. I would almost guarantee that most insurance, homeowners insurance, renters insurance, is not going to cover giant, large constrictors. So if it gets out and hurts somebody, I don't know all the legalities of it, but I would just imagine that that's not going to be good, and it's not something that I think you would want to put yourself in. So just keep that in mind too. What did Jeremy asked? What hooks am I using for big snakes? So I think the brand that I use, I don't know where it is down here. It's somewhere down in my basement. I think it's called a Tomahawk, or it's made by a company called Tomahawk. And like I said, the one that I use, it's what is it? It's probably 4 feet or so, and it's kind of it's got like a 90 on the end. It's the long handle, and then on the end it's just got a hook, right? I don't have any of the big like U-shaped snake hooks or any like the big python hooks or any of that. I don't have any of those. I used to, but I've never really liked those. I like the hook ones because I can kind of just, hook the snake where I need and kind of pull him towards me, her towards me, where I can get a hands on the animal and kind of work it that way. And then I have a lot of smaller hooks, that I just use to kind of open the tubs, and I'll tap them on the head, cancel out their feeding response, or just kind of let them know I'm there, and then I'll reach in and grab them. I've seen some people that don't use a hook. It's crazy to me. I would never, tamest retic in the world, I would never just reach my hand in an enclosure and grab it. I don't know. I just couldn't do it. I've worked with too many animals that I don't know. It's just wild to me that people do that. You're just setting yourself up for an issue. And I would never do that. Jordan says, my best friend's wife is our agent. She doesn't know about the snakes. Nothing she could do to cover anything. Right. So that's kind of what the consensus is. I have some friends who have friends that are agents, and it's kind of you don't have any of that. Don't say anything. Just keep it quiet. I guess it's kind of the same as, they ask you if you have certain breeds of dogs or, stuff like that. But it would suck if something happened like that, though. Sorry, I'm trying to look at my list too that I made. I made a list of some stuff to talk about. Jeremy says there are a few major companies that cover your reptiles. And oh, wow, that's crazy. I did not know that. Do you happen to know what those companies are, out of curiosity? We just actually switched ours. So that's why I thought about it, is because they asked my wife a bunch of questions about animals and stuff. So I was actually nervous. We didn't say anything about the snakes, but I was nervous about our dog because we have a 175-pound Great Dane that I was a little nervous that they would say something about. What's up, Amber? How are you? Sean says he has the two-handed giant snake hook from Midwest Tongs. Yeah, it's the blue one, I think, and it's got the base of the hook is like super wide. I had that before. I ended up getting rid of it because I never used it. It's I could see if you had some real monster retics, possibly. It just was very clumsy. Yeah, very clumsy to use. And I wasn't a fan. I have a decent snake room, but I don't have a huge like open area. So I don't know. I really like that tomahawk hook that I got. It's. I wish I knew where I put it. I don't want to run around looking for it. It's been my favorite snake hook I've ever had. So I love it. It's great. It's a little big. It's heavier duty, so it's like got a thicker handle and stuff. So I love it though. Yeah, Dax says most apartments don't allow them. I'm sure most apartments, most HOAs, a lot of that stuff I'm sure is not allowed. Jordan says, my pit was a boxer. Yeah, there you go. That's the right way to do it. Absolutely. I'm doing good, Amber. How are you? Yeah, so I think one of the other things I was thinking of when I was making my notes is I think a lot of keepers, not a lot, but I keep saying a lot of keepers. I don't necessarily mean a lot of keepers, but I think especially if you've been doing retics a long time, complacency could really settle in. And, I've been doing this for 15 years. I've never had an incident. And then boom, something happens. I know there's times I find myself getting complacent, trying to move a snake that doesn't want to be moved or stuff like that. And it's stupid. I shouldn't do that. Right. Let them mellow out before I move it. But I think that's a big thing too, especially for the guys that have been doing it a long time. We get so comfortable, we think we've made it this far without anything happening, and then something happens, and that's on us. We're getting overconfident. We're kind of just, we think we know everything and can read every animal, and that's when shit happens. So I think trying to remember that these are still wild animals at heart, right? They're wild animals. They're apex predators, like I've said 100 times. They're not your dog. They're not your cat. They're not a loving family member like a lot of people think they are. Fuck, there he is. There he is. Mr. Lucas. I was actually going to see if you wanted to come on, Paul, but I figured since it was 9 o'clock my time that you would be sleeping and you wouldn't want to come on because I figured we could talk about your bite. But how big, Paul, how big was that retic that grabbed you? I don't remember. That snake wasn't huge if I remember. Well, yeah, I see that now, you fuck, that you're on. I figured you would be sleeping. Oh, it was, so he says a 14-foot. I thought it was smaller than that. Yeah, I thought that snake was smaller. That's a big male. That's a big fucking male. And that thing, I remember seeing the pictures of the blood squirting out of your fucking hand. And yeah, that was a gnarly bite for sure. One of the bad ones by far. Yeah, so Amber and her husband Jeff got a mail from me. Man, it was a long time. It was a while ago, and she said, yeah, she got a bite from a male about a year ago, her hand is still kind of numb. So, dude, you messaged to me. I don't know how to fucking share it on here. I don't know how to do that. I'm not that tech savvy, dude. I wish I knew how to do it. Anyone who wants to see the video can message Paul Lucas, and he'll send it to you. How about that? He'll send it to you. It's a gnarly video. How many stitches was that, Paul, on that? Or did they have to do staples? I forget. Unless, can I? I don't know how to. Sorry, I'm going to try to figure this out. No, I don't know how to do that. Sorry, guys. Media assets. What does that mean? I'm trying to see if I can... No, I don't know how to do that. That might be something I have to do, like... Yeah, I remember you had surgery. 51, so Paul had to have surgery, and it was 51 stitches from that bite. And is your hand still fucked from that, Paul? Like you can move, like I don't remember if that hit tendons and all that shit. Like you still can move your hands and stuff like normal and no issues, right? They had to burn my second artery on my hand. I sent that night, the next day in the hospital. Yeah, I remember seeing all those pictures and videos when it happened. It was fucking wild. But it was, dude, that was what, 10 years ago probably or more? Yeah, so that was nerve damage and stuff. So, yeah, that's what I mean. So Paul's a guy that it's happened to, and I know I've seen him get on people's asses about these fucks that are putting these snakes in their faces, these big 12, 15-foot animals like they're puppy dogs. Like, imagine if that happened to the side of your face. You'd be fucked. Or your throat. Like, no. You'd be done. You'd be so fucked up from that, it wouldn't even be funny. And then you're gonna fucking ruin it for everybody else. Like, just people gotta think, man. This fucking guy. Paul, I'm on my. I don't know why I don't know why I fucking typed that to you. I'm on my computer, dude, not on my phone. If you want, send it to me, I can try to share it on the video. Let's see. I'll like hold my phone up to the camera or something, maybe. All right, we're gonna see Paul's bite picture or whatever he's gonna send us. But yeah, like I said, I don't know. I kind of went into this video. I had some notes and stuff, but I didn't really exactly have it super planned out. Basically, it was just I wanted to get in and talk just about all the shit I'm seeing with the people handling these snakes and just not treating them the way that I think they should be treated. And I'm sure the vast majority of people that have been in the hobby for a while, you know, feel the same way, you know, walking around with them like accessories and not treating them like actual animals. Yeah, so another thing I put too is, I'm sure a lot of these snakes too don't get adequate care, housing, food, probably not enough handling. They're stressed, right? They're treated like shit. They're probably thrown in a box or a cage that's not the proper temperature. It's too small or it's too big, and they're stressed out. They're never getting handled. They're just getting food thrown in there. They're never even getting touched, right? The only interaction they're having with people is a rat being tossed in or whatever, a pig or whatever they're eating, right? So, yeah, I mean, so then Paul's messaging me. Hold on. Let's see. Oh, fuck. Oh, yeah. So here, this is, it's not going to work. Where's it at? Oh, it's a fucking terrible glare. So you can kind of see his hand. Not really. But it's fucking terrible. That's his hand with blood everywhere. There's one. Oh, here we go. It's a video.
Pouring out of me.
Look at that.
So blood is just pouring out.
Were those both videos, Paul? I don't remember. No. Yeah, so that was, I remember, dude, that shit was crazy. That was wild. You were, I mean, what do you think was the estimate on that to heal, Paul? I mean, that took a while. You only had the one, was it the one surgery, I forget, or was it multiple, did you say? I know you had surgery, just, I don't remember if it was the one or what, because I know our other friend who got bit bad in the hand, I think he had 3, if I remember correctly. It was 3 or 4 surgeries, but he ripped. He was, if I remember the story correctly, I think he was soaking an animal in a tub, and when he pulled the lid off, I think he reached in to get the snake, or even when he pulled the lid off, the snake grabbed him in the hand. You know, the snake came out, grabbed him, if I remember. I don't remember exactly where it was. Grabbed him, and he pulled his hand, and it just fucking shredded his hand. I don't know if it was like almost degloved him, right? I think just pulled his shit all apart. He had to have multiple surgeries. He's telling me to turn the fucking brightness down. Let's see. Told you guys I'm not the most tech savvy individual.
Some blood is just pouring out of me. Some blood is just pouring out.
Come on.
Some
There we
blood
go.
is just pouring out of me.
So yeah.
Some blood is just pouring out.
Yeah, so when you 4 months of recovery, yeah. So I mean, just think the repercussions of that. If you do something at work and you're working with your hands and you get bit in the hand like that, and you can't work, you're fucked for months and months and months. So again, I know Paul is somebody too. When he sees that, I know he cringes and just like he's been through it, right? He's got fucked up bad, and so that's why we kind of get on people about that shit. You know, it seems silly. Oh, why do you care? Why do you care? You know what someone's doing with their animal and they're scratching them under their chin or they're just doing shit like that. It's because we've seen what can happen and what does happen. And Paul's not a newbie. Paul's been keeping retics at that point for a while. It wasn't like that was his first retic. You know, it happens. It happens to a lot of us. You know, like I said, I'm lucky it hasn't happened to me, minus that one bite in my leg. But that was nothing compared to what happened to Paul. Fuck, I totally fucking forgot about that video. That's crazy. Crazy stuff, dude. What were you saying? Yeah, so like we were saying, it you know, I think a lot of it too is just people aren't keeping them right, and they're stressed, neglected. You know, that can, I think, attribute to them being assholes at times, underfeeding them. You know, a lot of the times too. You know, they're always hungry. That ups their food drive if they're hungry. You know, and retics already have a crazy food drive. So, yeah, I'm reading the comments too. So Paul says, yeah, so it was 4 months. He said, yeah, it got infected. Jeremy saying, hit by a railer on display at the zoo. Yeah. Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah, I remember that. You said it was a saw hit you. Didn't they call you out on it or say that's bullshit or something like that, if I remember? Yeah, that's the thing, too. What do you say, right? Like, what would you tell? So, like, because let's be honest, I know people are keeping these snakes in states where they're not supposed to be. So if something like that happens, what are you going to say? I mean, a doctor's not an idiot, too. They're going to know if it's an animal bite or you get your hand caught. I mean, maybe not, but you know, they're going to know, I think, for the most part. He was like, oh, what's this? I was like, no idea. Yeah, that's probably the right response. Yeah, because God forbid, imagine if they fucking reported that or some shit. What's up, Weston? Weston says everyone should have to get a wildcat sub-adult retake and learn how to handle it. Yeah. Yeah. That I think would weed out a lot of people for sure. I'd say probably 70% or more. Yeah, probably 70, 80% of people probably wouldn't own a retic if they had to do that. Those are no fun. Like I said, I've had some wild caughts. Not a ton. They weren't all assholes, but I've had a few that, you know, would definitely make you like not want to own a retic at all. So, and none of the wild caughts I had were really that big. 10 foot, 11 foot maybe. So, but they're so fucking fast and they're so mean. I got bit on the hand by my 8-foot female. Yeah, that would. And that's the thing too. Like it's not even so much the bite, right? It's the pullback. Paul, when you got bit, I don't remember. I'm sure it's you're going to pull back, right? You didn't just sit there. Or did you let that snake grab you and let go, or did you pull back? I would imagine you probably pulled back at least somewhat. Says the doctor got the tooth. That's so funny. That was probably like so cool for them. Like this dude, like they see the same shit all the time. They're like, yeah, this dude came in and got his hand fucking mangled up by a giant snake. It's probably like, oh, that's the highlight. That was probably the highlight of his month, man. Yeah. That was my concern. Yeah, so think about that. A doctor is like, couldn't believe that an animal did that. And they see gnarly ass shit all the time. He explained on Retic Lounge podcast. Okay, well, fuck you. Yeah, crazy. So yeah, we see shit like that. Don't put these fucking animals up by your face, man. Like, just so stupid. Or just be prepared. If you're going to do that, be prepared, because that could happen. And if you want a bite like that on the side of your face, or potentially for that to happen, then just be prepared, because it could happen. And you're going to be crying about it, that you'd let it happen. Notes. Yeah, I mean, even not even just feeding bites, right? Even just a defensive bite can cause some crazy damage. You could get crazy deep lacerations. There could be infections with it. A lot of times nerve damage. There's a crazy picture of, it's in one, I think it's in Glenn's book too. I believe it was Dave Barker got bit in the thigh. Or I don't even think it was like a wrap. I think the snake just hit him and let go from a big, like 19, I want to say it was like 19-foot or 20-foot retic. And he didn't pull, it looks like he didn't pull away. It literally looks like the snake just grabbed him, let him go. But man, how much bruising is on his leg from the sheer force of that animal is crazy. Like, if you would have pulled away from that, man, like, or if that snake would have like ripped his, like, what is that? Is that the femoral? I don't know how you say it. Artery? Is that in the leg or whatever? Isn't that in the leg? That fucking just that would ruin your life. You would die, which is insane. If you guys don't have that book, go check Glenn's book out too. There is some crazy stuff on there. Let's see. So he did pull. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of people that say, "Oh, just don't pull away." That's almost impossible. I mean, how would you not want to? If you got bit in the hand, how are you not going to pull away? I kind of pull away sometimes when the babies get me and I'm not paying attention. Imagine a 15-foot snake grabbing a hold of your hand. You're going to pull away. I think most 90% of people are going to pull away. Yeah, but what are you going to do? Shit happens. We keep these snakes. It's part of the territory. You got to be prepared to get bit. I'll invite you on. Don't worry. I got you. I got to send you some pictures anyways here in a little bit. Once I'm done with this, I'm going to snap some photos for you. So I got you, boo. Don't worry. What was like John's arm? Oh, yeah. It was crazy. You're talking about me referencing Barker's bite with the bruising? Yeah, that John's bite was wild too. Didn't oh no, never mind. I'm thinking of something else. Yeah, I don't know. There's just, there is a lot of dangers with these snakes, and it's not meant to scare people away. And I don't want people to not keep these snakes, but it's stuff that you really need to think about too. They can get out of cages. They can break out of a lot of shit. They're super smart. If there's a weak spot in your cage, man, they'll find it. They'll get out. They could hurt you. They could hurt a family member. They could potentially kill you. They could literally alter the rest of your life with some of these bites. You know, they could get you kicked out of your place of living. They could get you in legal problems. There's just so much that could happen with these snakes. You know, so why put yourself in a position for any of that to happen? You know, let's just say you got a 12-foot retic. It bites you in the hand, similar to like what happened to Paul's. Nobody's there to help you. You're bleeding all over the house. Somebody hears you screaming. You're living in an apartment complex. They come and look. It looks like a goddamn murder scene in your house, right? They're going to report it to the owner of the apartment or whatever. They're going to investigate. They're going to find out you have these giant snakes that now fucked your hand up. It's going to get all over the news. It's just a whole fucking disaster. So why? And then it fucks everybody, right? It screws everybody else from keeping these snakes. So it's just a lot of shit to think about, you know, when you keep them, you know. And by all means, if you're up for the challenge and you're prepared and you're ready, by all means, keep them. They're fucking the best snake, in my opinion, or the coolest snake. They're not hard to keep, really. There's shit that you need to be prepared for, especially with the mainlands. And most of this is I'm applying to mainland stuff, right? So dwarf, super dwarf stuff, mainly super dwarf stuff, is a little different. But like I said, some of the super dwarf stuff that gets bigger, 8 foot or 9 foot, that could still kill a human. Paul's going to bed. Yeah, man. Well, I mean, we see it all the time, right? And nobody is talking about it, or very rarely. I mean, you guys were talking about it the other day, right? And that's, you know, I had this kind of thing before I went on vacation. I was kind of planning to do this. So, but then after you guys brought it up again, I'm like, yeah, see, this is what we need. We need to talk about it, you know, not to scare people, but maybe to scare people, right? So, well, I'll talk to you tomorrow or something. I'll hit you up. But, yeah, it's just the whole snowball effect, right, of everything that could happen. So not trying to scare people, like I said, but be mindful and be conscious of what can potentially happen. It happens. Paul's a great retic keeper. You know, he's been doing it a long time, and he got fucked up pretty bad. So it can happen. You know, and another thing I think that doesn't help is you look at like some of the videos, right? The Jay Brewer videos, and he's got these giant ass snakes and they're striking at him and they're biting him and he's laughing like it's no big deal. And I mean, that's crazy. That is not normal. That's not how it is. Most people aren't. I wouldn't do that. If I was getting bit or struck at by giant retic like that, I wouldn't be laughing and thinking it's funny. You know, it's a serious thing, you know. And if a big snake like that grabs you and wraps you, you're in a serious world of problems, like for real. The last thing we need is somebody to get killed by one of these big retics. Mike, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but it's the reality of these animals, unfortunately. I think people have been too lax in explaining it. And I think since a lot of the community revolves around social media and we're not able to really talk about it and show pictures about it on social media, I think it's kind of got pushed to the wayside in a way. And we're all guilty of that. I'm guilty of that. You know, I don't post about it. And, you know, people have posted bite pictures on the nation and I delete them. But again, it's not because I don't think people should see them. It's because I don't want to risk losing the page. You know, so that's why we can't post about them on social media, unfortunately. They are out there, you know, people you can search. I'm sure if you reach out to people too, they'll show you pictures. But I think it's good. I think people need to see these issues or these bites and these potentials of what can happen. If seeing a bite like Paul's makes a buyer second guess buying a retic, then that's good. Then that's should happen. You're I don't know, how do I compare it? You go buy a crotch rocket that comes with a lot of risk, right? I mean, you got to be prepared. If you're going to buy a crotch rocket, or you're doing something dangerous, skydiving, or I don't know. There's how many different things that are dangerous out there for you, right? You're playing those risks. So by saying, but I think by promoting that, oh, they're sweet, they're cute little baby snakes, they're not going to hurt you. That does nothing. That couldn't be further from the truth, right? And I think that's almost worse than us not posting bite pics, because those people are kind of making people think there's this like false sense of oh, they're just sweet little animals, they're not going to hurt you, which is, like I said, couldn't be further from the truth. There, perfect. Yeah, it's firearm safety, exactly. You go through, get with a good mentor. That I think is something I see more and more people doing. I personally get a ton of messages from people, and I encourage everybody, if reach out to people, reach out to myself. If you have a question, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. Like I answer, I reach out, or I respond to pretty much everybody, right? Reach out to me if you need help or advice, or you need a mentor or whatever, or find somebody close to you that you can get hands-on mentorship with these animals. That is the best thing you can do. Same thing like Jordan talked about firearm safety. Like, you're not going to go out and buy a gun and never have touched a gun before, held a gun before, fired a gun before. That's just asking for issues. You're going to go to, a firearm safety class or some training or some sort of something. Sorry, I get my fucking chest, my heartburn. You're going to get some sort of training or something beforehand. And that's what I think most people need to do with a retic, And obviously, I could sit here and preach. People are going to go to shows. They're going to buy retics with no research, no help, no nothing. Please, if you do that, reach out to somebody that owns retics and raises retics and works with retics, and ask them for help and listen to their advice. Our time is valuable, right? So if I'm taking time out of my day to answer questions for you, please listen to that advice and take that advice to heart. I don't want you to fuck up, and I don't want you to get injured, and I don't want me helping you and you not listening, and then you go and get hurt. That in a way is going to fall on my shoulders, and I don't want that. So, there's such a thing as a healthy amount of fear to have to prevent complacency and foster risk mitigation at all times. Exactly. Nailed it. It's not to be scared. It's to understand to respect these animals. So, man, you have a wonderful keeping experience if you respect the damage they can inflict. And that, like I said, and that's, I preach, I love retics. I think they're the greatest snake ever. I think if you know what you're getting into, you're prepared for the animals, you're knowledgeable of the risks, I don't think there's a more rewarding species to keep. I've owned a lot of species of reptiles, period. I've gotten rid of them, most of them, sold them, traded them, and I've gotten more retics. To me, they're the pinnacle of reptile keeping, with the exception of a handful of monitors, or maybe crocodilians or some venomous, but that stuff is on another, even a bigger level, I think, than retics, right? But they can and they are probably the best snake, as long as you kind of follow what we were just talking about. The who's this? Who is this? Keith? Noah? Titan retics? It's got to be one of the two, I would imagine. Probably Keith. But it could be Noah as well. Jeremy says any retic keeper breeder worth his or her salt will be exactly. Like I said, I think that's the biggest thing is, and most of the really good breeders or the people that really want to help. I mean, look, Paul as well. Paul offers mentorship. I know Weston helps out a ton of people. I reach out to a ton of people or help a lot of people. You know, anybody that's a halfway decent breeder and not a shithead will help you out. You know, and that's the key is get with a good person, and learn and be a sponge and soak up all that knowledge. You know, it will help you in the long run. Does the same thing apply to berms as well? Berms have killed people. They're a big constricting snake as well. They don't have it's been a long time since I've kept a berm. They definitely don't have the feeding response that a retic does. But same things. I wouldn't put them around my shoulder. I'd be very careful feeding, make sure they're in a escape-proof enclosure. I mean, as far as the legalities, it's the same. A lot of it's the same stuff too. Berms are more, they're kind of a more mellow, laid back. They're like a big ball python in a way, right? They're a lot more mellow, chilled. They're kind of dumb, you know. They're kind of dumb compared to a retic, right? I mean, they're not a super. I don't know. I don't think they're a super high intelligent snake. Comparing it to a retic, it's night and day difference. And they just kind of chill out. That's why I think you see a lot of reptile educators. Not a lot of them use retics. A lot of them use berms. Retics are move. They're athletic. They want to go. They don't want to sit still. You know, berms are the complete opposite. A lot of time they just chill. They're slow moving for the most part. They kind of just hang out. So, but yeah. What's up, Noah? Yeah. So Noah, get a mentor, get hands-on experience, and listen. Listening is key. I've tried to help people that do not want to listen, and they're going to go ask 5 other people until they get the answer that they're looking for, and that's on them. But Keith helped me a ton. I was really capable of messing with, yeah. So I mean, hands-on experience, man, with big retics is great. If you could learn that, and complacency. I mean, there's so much we talked about in this video, right? The complacency is a big thing too. I think it's easy for us to get very complacent. Yeah. You want a constant workout. Exactly. Super smart snake. That's a retic. A chill giant ball python is definitely a berm. Definitely. I'm just trying to look through my notes if there's anything I missed. I said I kind of just threw some stuff together. Yeah, I think we hit most of the stuff. You know what? One thing though we didn't touch on is, another thing to think about too is I wouldn't necessarily. I don't know if it falls under danger, but just something to think about is, you go buy a cute little baby retic at a show for $200, and the life expectancy. I mean, they can and should live 20, 30 years, maybe more. I have a few retics here that are in the probably 15, closing in on 20. I'd have to look through all my records, but definitely 15-year-old animals. Life changes. Life can change a lot. Those big retics are hard to move. They're hard to rehome. It's hard to sell retics for the most part too, unless you have a good name, you're known in the community. You got to be like on your game with your customer service and all that stuff. And that's hard. It's still hard to move retics. If you got a big snake, you're not known, you're just a keeper, and you're in a pinch where you need to get rid of a snake quick, it's very hard. I get offered retics almost daily from people. Not even super duper low end stuff. I'm talking about I've got offered purple golden child tigers, and I've got offered, double head this and that, and all this stuff. And it's it's sad. It's truly sad. So that's something to consider too. Is just you gotta think about it before you purchase one of these snakes, and kind of have stuff ready or like in place before you make that jump. Because the last thing we want is then, if an individual cannot take care of their snake and they're giving it away to somebody, is that person going to really care who they're giving it away to? And then is that person that's getting that snake qualified to have that animal? And then the whole cycle starts over. They're going to get bit, or they're going to get hurt or possibly killed because they don't know what they're getting into, and they were given a 15, 16-foot retic for nothing with no experience, nothing. So it's just stuff like that, we really got to think about. But we've been on, what have we been on, about an hour. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to chat about while I'm here? How about that monster Sula that they just caught? That snake was insane. I'm going to look it up. I forget what, I think it was like 23. I think that thing was like 23 feet or something like that, if I remember correctly. Where did it go? 23 foot 8 inches. That's insane. That is a monster. That is an absolute monster retic, man. And that thing has got one of the coolest. I mean, that is one of the best looking Sulas, I've seen in a while. That is like the perfect back pattern, and it's perfect. It's not overweight, gross. Obviously, it's a wild caught animal, but it doesn't look grossly obese, and it's so long. That snake is incredible. I think they said in the video that they're keeping it alive. Someone's gonna take care of it, and man, is that cool. I hope they keep that thing healthy, feed the shit out of it. That snake potentially, that could be a monster. Imagine if that snake hit 25, 26 feet. How cool that would be. It's unreal. I mean, it sucks. They had its mouth tape. It did look like it might have been like drugged up or something, because there's a picture of a guy laying next to it, and the thing's like just chilling there, which I can't imagine that a wild caught big monster retic like that is just going to sit still like that. So I wonder if I hope they didn't kill it. I know in the video I think they said that they weren't, but hopefully it's all right. I know a guy that said he had one 25 foot. Yeah, there's a lot of those people floating around saying they've seen a 25 or 26 footer, or unless you're talking about the guy that was talking about I think it was on the Nation today that he had a 24 foot retic or something. Like, that's so big. Like, I don't think people realize, like, 17, 18, 19 footer is huge. Those are huge retics. A 19 to a 20 foot snake is massive. 20, and then like every foot is just insane. It's just insane. I've seen, that was the base. I shouldn't really saw I've seen a lot of big, I think I talked about this in a video or a podcast before, but I've seen a lot of big retics, right? I've been to Jay's and I saw Twinkie. I've been to Bob's and I've seen, I don't remember, I think it was one of the Fluffies. I don't know which one, giant, huge tiger retic. I've been to Jay's. Obviously, I saw Twinkie, but I saw a lot of Jay's other monsters there. Kevin had a humongous platinum. And then some other friends of mine have had some real big retics. The late, great Jim Gaspar had a fucking massive tiger. Twiggy, she was huge. I think she was like 21 foot or something like that. Giant. But she was a sweetheart. My buddy Chad in Wisconsin, he had a huge Sula. Probably one of the biggest retics I've ever seen, to be honest. Comparing it to like Fluffy, Twinkie. Lengthwise, that snake was probably the longest snake I've personally seen in person. Personally, I've seen. Weight-wise, though, it wasn't. Weight-wise, it was a lean lot. I mean, still probably 100 150, 200 pounds, but it was a lot leaner than like the Twinkie and Fluffy and all that were. That snake was massive. That snake that my buddy Chad had reminds me a lot of the snake that's on that YouTube or that video. That Sula was freaking giant, dude. Yeah, I don't. That's a really big retic too. That's a huge. I don't know how big that snake was. Do you know by chance, Jordan, off the top of your head? That she's big. There's some shadiness with those guys over there, though. I'll tell you that. I was talking to a guy that supposedly bought some Sulas from some guy in Florida that apparently, and I'd have to look through my text messages, and I think he said, that Medusa, when they bought Medusa was labeled as a Sula or some bullshit like that, and they got some other snakes in that were Sula, and I've seen pictures and they don't look like Sulas. They look like they could be. There's one, if it's the same one, they look like it could be a cross possibly, but it doesn't look pure by any means. But the guy that I was talking to, I guess, works for the guy that owns that haunted house or some shit. And I don't know, just stories just seem sketchy to me. I don't know. Wolfgang don't talk to me. So I think he disappeared or he blocked me on Facebook. But I know he had some nice snakes, but I don't know. I know I've seen some pictures of one of his big giant Sulas I have saved on my phone. That's a big ass snake. But I don't know if it's, I think my buddy Chad's Sula was bigger. I think. But I don't know. I'd love to see. Wolfgang's very secretive, doesn't like to share shit, so I don't know. It's hard to make claims on shit if people don't post pictures, so, or don't want people to know. So 25-2 was that Medusa? Jeremy? That's like, I don't know, man. Or maybe, yeah, Jordan's saying the same thing. I don't know. 25 is huge. I don't know. I think that might be bullshit, but maybe. Yeah, they might be. I don't know. Like I said, who knows? I don't know what happened to old Wolf. Like I said, it seems like he disappeared as far as I know, or like I said, he's got me blocked. But I don't. A lot of people I talked to said they have not seen him post or heard from him in a while, so he could have just disappeared. Yeah, that's what I thought. Medusa. Yeah, that's a fucking huge retic. That's a big retic. My favorite was Jim's big tiger, Jim Gaspar's big tiger, Fluffy, or not Fluffy, Twiggy. She was awesome. She had, I think when she passed, I want to say she was like 21 something, maybe. I don't think she was quite 22 feet. Oh, I don't remember. Shit. I have a terrible memory. She was beautiful. She was awesome. Jim actually brought her to Tinley one time, if I remember correctly. And I believe Barchek did a snake bites episode with her, and like he couldn't believe how big she was. So that was pretty cool. I do remember that snake was awesome. I wish I would have got a baby from her at some point. I never did. I wanted to get a tiger female off of her, but didn't happen, unfortunately. So it sucks. But yeah, so I don't we're at hour 10. Does anybody got anything they want to talk about quick before we hop off? Otherwise, I'm gonna go knock out some cages and go to bed. So going to try to do another video here soon. Pretty good numbers. I mean, we were at 20 something people. So I appreciate all of you guys for coming and watching, man. I really do. I appreciate the support. I know everybody tells me I got to do these more often and stuff. So a lot of content out there now. I know Rodney's doing his video with Spencer, and them are doing Rodney and Spencer are doing their podcast. I think Rodney's going daily almost on his videos. There's a few other guys doing videos and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I want to do these more often, even if it's just coming on like this by myself and just bullshitting with you guys in the chat. I like doing it. I just, doing it late, it's hard for me. I like to spend time with my kids after school and work, and, they don't go to bed till about 8:15. Then I like to wind down a little bit and then hop on here about 9 o'clock my time, Central Time here. So I know it's a little late, but I appreciate, like I said, all 20-something people you guys jumping on here. Is crazy to me. That's a great. Oh, sweet. Jordan said he sent me the OG local news video of Medusa. I'm going to have to look into this. There's got to be a way to share pictures, videos, and stuff on this StreamYard. Again, I'm not the most tech savvy person, so I'll have to look into it. Mike, what's the best to start with for just a pet? Honestly, man, I know Jeremy says a male. I wouldn't necessarily say one sex is better than the other, to be honest with you. I say get a snake. If you're looking for a morph or something, find the morph that you like and find the best example of that morph, and get that snake, and just get a baby. I would say get a hatchling, whatever you get, male, female, get a hatchling. That way, if it's, your first retic, you're going to grow with the snake, right? So as the snake's growing, you're going to learn that animal. It's going to learn you. It's so much better. It's such a more rewarding experience growing with that animal. Even me doing this now, I much rather prefer getting babies. Obviously, genetics wise, there's stuff sometimes where a deal comes up or an animal comes up that fits into my plans. It's an adult, I'll grab. But it's so much more rewarding, even for me, to get a hatchling and raise it and put the 4 or 5 years into that animal and then breed it. But even if I'm not breeding it, just to keep it, it's a lot better. If I will say though, if you have any inclination or want to breed, you don't have to. Just because you buy retics or like retics does not mean you have to breed. Everybody thinks you have to. You don't have to. You can just have a few as pets. That's 1,000% acceptable and awesome. But if you think down the road you might want to try breeding, get a female first, just because then you are putting your time in on that animal. Whereas if you get a male and then in 2 years you say, I want to try to breed him some point down the road. Now you got to get a female. And now that clock starts over. You got to put in those 4 years on that female. So that's my only thing. Again, you don't have to go into it automatically. I want to breed. There's a lot of people breeding retics. We don't need we don't need a million people breeding retics, but I would never tell anybody to not breed them. It's the coolest experience. It's one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life. Every time I get a clutch of babies and I hatch out babies, I'm like borderline in tears because I think it's the coolest thing ever. You're literally hatching out like these little dinosaurs in a way. And it's just seeing the different colors, the patterns, the differences between each animal is so amazing. And I'm sure anybody that breeds reptiles or any animal, dogs, cats, I think it's probably everybody feels the same way. But it is cool, especially when, like, for me, they're my favorite species on the planet. So to be able to make my own is awesome. But just get something you like morph wise, because you're the one that's going to have to clean up after it every day, feed it, take care of it, all of that. So if it's not something you're 100% in love with, do not get it. Go to shows, handle babies, reach out to breeders, local breeders, see if you can come and check out those animals. handle as many as you can to find that animal that you specifically fall in love with. You'll know when you find that animal that you can't live without. That's the one you want. Jordan says I'm gonna have to look at that video, man. I know she's a big animal. Jeremy, I might hit you up on the behind the scenes, man. Like I said, I'm trying to learn. The website thing's got my brain frazzled as is, so trying to do that. Plus, all this stuff is a lot. Yeah. So, all right. Well, if nobody's got, you're welcome, Mike. I just saw your message. Yeah, appreciate it. Reach out, dude. Like I said, if you got any questions, man, find me on Facebook, Nation, Instagram, JK Reptiles. I'll help you any way I can, answer your questions, whatever. If I can help you link up with a breeder close to you that's willing to help, I'll do that too. Just, reach out, man. Absolutely. So, so I appreciate, again, everybody coming out, checking out the video. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. Was trying to read the comments and look at my notes and answer questions and get my point across without losing my train of thought. So, hopefully, the people that are newer got something from it. Like I told Mike, anybody's got questions, needs advice, I'm always available. A lot of us breeders are, so don't be afraid to reach out on any of my platforms. And let me know. Let me know what you guys think you guys like to see next as far as a video. Do you want me to do another video like this? Should we bring somebody else on? Who would you like to see me bring on? I don't know. I like doing them with other people, but I also like doing my own videos. So, let me know what you guys think, and we'll do one again here soon. Maybe next week or 2 weeks or something like that. Try to do another one. So, all right, guys, appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe, do all the good stuff for me so I can get this channel growing. I'd like to get some more. I'd like to hit some more subscribers on this for sure. So, appreciate y'all, and have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.